Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about the difference between Western tropical astrology and Sidereal Vedic Astrology, which I practice. I find this important because when I put out my lunar eclipse video and I mentioned that November 8th was my birthday, so many people were saying, "Oh, you're born on my birthday, fellow Scorpio." Well, you know what? When we talk about our birthday and what sign we are, we're actually talking about where the sun is. And those of you that may be unfamiliar with astrology, astrology is a map. And what we're looking at is where all the planets are. And according to what time you're born, that sets up the beginning of the chart so that we know what houses all the planets are going to fall in. It's just the houses are the areas of our life that make up our world. So as we go through all 12 houses, each house relates to something, such as the first house is you, the second house is your money. I'm being very general. Third house is your communications, the fourth house is your security and home, mother, the fifth house is your children and everything that you create in this world. The sixth house is your health and healing and work. The seventh house is your marriage. The eighth house is death, endings, transformation. The ninth house is spirituality, truth. And the 10th house is your career. The 11th house is your friends, your groups, your associates. Whereas the 12th house is the end of life, the endings, losses. So this is very general. And according to where your planets fall in this chart, will tell you much about what your experiences are in life. So it's a map where the planets fall. So when you talk about being your sign, you're talking about where the sun is, because the sun will travel and stay in a sign per month. But because of the movement of the stars, which has been happening and is always happening, 2,000 years ago, when the zodiacs, the tropical and sidereal zodiacs, were actually lined up in the same placements. As the stars started to move, so did the placements of the planets relative to the stars. And remember, the stars pretty much, it's not total, but pretty much constitute what signs. So the stars, like the fixed star Regulus, which is considered the heart of the lion, it is in Leo. So you see, we have these star groupings in the whole zodiac that are relative to each sign. So where your planets fall, according to the stars, are going to tell you what your sign is. So the sun sign will change every single month. And that's why we have your month of being whatever sign, whether you're looking at tropical or sidereal. But you see, 2,000 years ago, it lined up, but the stars were in alignment with the signs of the Western tropical and the Vedic sidereal. But over a period of 2,000 years, they started changing, and they're always changing. It's just that 2,000 years ago, they aligned. But they're changing. So what's happened is that your planets, and we're talking about the sun right now, have shifted backwards because the stars moved. And at this point in time, the whole zodiac, from where it was 2,000 years ago, has shifted 23 degrees backwards according to the movement of the stars. So a full sign is 30 degrees. So 23 degrees is almost a full sign. Therefore, the placement of your sun could fall backwards relative to the stars that your sun is placed with at your time and place of birth. So right now, around the year of 2022, the whole zodiac falls back about 24 degrees. Okay, so So not a complete sign. So if you have planets that are in the last 6 degrees of a sign, remember 24 degrees, 6 degrees left, they will be in the same sign. But it will be at the very beginning of the Vedic signs and the very end of the Western signs. Now here's a typical way that you can figure it out without looking all this up and becoming so confused. If you know your Western degrees of your planets, then add 7 and go back a sign. Or add 6 and go back a sign. You're going to get your Vedic placements. But if you have the degrees of your planets which are more than 24 degrees, then just minus 24 from the degree of that planet. Such as if you have a planet that's 28 degrees of Capricorn, then minus 24, and that means that your planet will be 4 degrees, let's see, 4 degrees of the same sign, Capricorn. I hope that didn't confuse you. So if the degree marking is after 24 degrees, then you subtract 24 from that degree, such as 24 minus 28 would be 4 degrees, and it stays in the same sign. So it goes from the late degree of the tropical placement to the early degree of the sidereal placement. Otherwise, if it's less than 24 degrees, then you add 6 and go back a sign. So you see what I'm really trying to say. I hope that didn't blow you away with trying to think, but here's the deal. These are the true placements of where the planets are relative to the stars. And Vedic astrology is a star-based system, whereas tropical astrology is really a sun seasonal based system, because we all know we're going to have summer the same time every year. We're going to have winter, fall, and spring. And that's based on tropical astrology, okay, which is Western. So it does have merit and meaning, I believe. And it's about the sun sign. What is the sun sign all about? Because it's relative to the seasons and the movement of the sun, which creates the seasons. So that's pretty much why our sun signs kind of predict our personality. But the Vedic chart is going to give a whole different dimension that, trust me, you'll relate to. If you understand that you're not just talking about your sun sign, you're talking about where all the planets are. And if your sun sign does change, chances are you have Mercury and Venus in the sign that you are in your Western chart. Why? Because Venus and Mercury never get that far from the sun. They're in the sign before, the sign of, or the sign after. So Mercury is how you think. And so if you're really attuned to being Scorpio, but your sun falls back to Libra, but your Mercury is in Scorpio, you're going to think like a Scorpio, even though your sun is in the sign of Libra. And here's another variable that goes a little bit deeper. A lot of people say, oh, I don't resonate to the Vedic signs. Some people say I don't resonate to the tropical Western signs. But it's going to be based a lot on the houses too. This is going deeper. But let's say you have 4 planets in the 8th house. And you don't have any planets in Scorpio. You're going to have a lot of Scorpio qualities. Why? Because the houses are so important, and the 8th house is relative to the 8th sign, which is Scorpio. So the first sign is Aries, and the first house is going to resonate like Aries. The second house, the second sign is Taurus, and the second house deals with money, and Tauruses are about financial situations. The third house in a chart is all about communications, and that's Gemini. So you see these signs and the houses align. So there's so much more to talking about I'm a Scorpio or I'm a Libra. So much more. How can you contain your whole life story into a sun sign? It's virtually impossible, and it's not true astrology. But as I was saying, relative to Western astrology, your sun sign will be a bit of your personality. Now let me talk a little bit about different cultures and astrologies. Western astrology really gives the essence of Western culture too, which is more superficial. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's more about surface variables. They don't talk so much about their spirituality and the depths of the soul. Yes, psychologically we do, and many of us are very much a part of that. But that's kind of what led me into looking into Vedic astrology, because it's more soul-based. It's more about the eternal, which is the stars. And another beautiful perspective that takes Vedic astrology in a different direction is the 27 nakshatras. So while Western astrology is the 12 signs, the planets in the signs, the planets in the houses, and yes, it's going to be based on the sun and the solar aspect of who we are personality-wise, with the cultural aspect of the Western world, which is going to be more about what's on the surface and your personality. You see, where Vedic astrology is more about the soul essence, what goes from lifetime to lifetime. So it's about the soul essence, and it's deeper. So you're going to connect to your Vedic signs about your soul essence, your karma, the deep side of your spirit. It's different than your personality of Western astrology, the psychology personality versus the spirituality and depth of the soul. So I really wanted to learn Vedic astrology based on that premise. Taking it a step deeper, they take the whole zodiac of 12 signs. Remember, each sign is 30 degrees. There's 12 of them, so it makes a 360-degree circle of the zodiac. But they divide the portions up into smaller segments of 13 degrees, 20 minutes. And these are called the nakshatras. So if you take the whole 360-degree zodiac and divide it into segments of 13 degrees, 20 minutes, you will get 27. And so the 27 nakshatras take this into a deeper spiritual aspect of what these portions and the stars, essentially what they mean in these portions of the zodiac. So the stars are what give the nakshatras meaning. And nakshatra actually means that which never decays. So these portions of the zodiac, I talk about the nakshatras relative to what the stars mean and the whole mythological meaning and depth of what these portions of the zodiac relate to. So it gets deeper and more detailed with meaning when you look at the nakshatras. And I find it fascinating that they are relative to the lunar calendar. And in India, the lunar calendar is based on the nakshatras. As a matter of fact, each month that the moon is full is the name of the month. The nakshatra is the name of the month where the moon is full for the 12 months. So getting one more step deeper, as I said, Western astrology is a solar-based system based on the seasons and the sun, and reflects our personality in this variable of personality psychology. Remember, I was a Western astrologer for 20 years. I understand it quite well. And you look at the aspects. The aspects are the portions between the planets, the degrees, if they're in opposition to one another, if they're conjunct one another, if they're 90 degrees from one another. These are aspects. And both Vedic and Western carry the same meanings with aspects. So when you're looking at where the planets are moving in the sky, relative to where they are in your map of where they were when you were born. So you have a birth chart, and this is where the planets are according to your time, day, year, and place of birth. It's a map of where the planets were. This is your chart. But where the planets continue to move through your chart, and as they come together with the planets where they were when you were born, is where we make our predictions. If it happens in the 7th house, let's say Jupiter is transiting and it's in your 7th house, remember your whole chart is set up by your time of birth according to what the rising sign is. That's house number 1. So you count to the 7th house. That will be your marriage partner and relationships when you get married, and all of those variables with partnership and marriage. So let's say that you have Venus in your 7th house, and transiting Jupiter happens to come into the sign, into your 7th house, and conjuncts come to the same degree as your Venus. This will happen once every 12 years with Jupiter. You have to understand how fast or slow the planets are moving. So Jupiter stays in a sign per year, but Jupiter is the planet we look for prediction in terms of making, expanding things and bringing good, exciting new things into our life. Saturn's going to be the planet that brings the difficult things to our life. Whereas Venus, Mercury, and the Sun, these are very fast-moving planets. They deal with daily experiences that happen throughout the year. But Mars can be a big trigger of things in your life according to where it's transiting. And the 3 outer planets are monumental for change in your life. So you see, I'm talking about where the planets are moving through your chart. You're fixed, sort of like freeze frame of where the planets were at birth, where the planets continue to move relative to that freeze frame birth chart. This is called transits, and this is where we make our predictions. My point is, your transits will be the same in Western astrology as they are in Vedic astrology. So planetary conjunctions, oppositions through the transits will happen the same time. So they are in alignment with the predictions of the Western chart relative to the Vedic chart. You have the same transits. And in Western astrology, you have the progress chart, which is a technique for prediction. It works quite well, but my favorite are the dashas in Vedic astrology. The dashas are based on where your natal moon is at your time and place of birth. That starts your entire cycles of when things will happen in your life. So let me point out this fact. Western tropical astrology is a solar-based system. But Vedic astrology is a lunar-based system based on the dasha system. It's relative to your moon, and that is why in many of my videos I always say, look at where your natal moon is, as well as the ascendant, because we call this Chandra Lagna, and that simply means the moon as the ascendant. The Lagna in Vedic astrology is the ascendant. So we base things solely, and that's so personal, where your natal moon is, because the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So when you're looking at sun sign astrology, everyone has the same sun sign for a month, but people have the same moon sign for only 2.5 days. Very personal and very changeable, and it sets up the whole predictive system of what we call the dashas, which is extraordinary, very accurate. Western has its merits and what it's about, but so does Vedic astrology. So I just want to give you, I hope I didn't lose you with some of the details, but I want somebody that's not a professional, that's a novice, that wants to understand what is it with Vedic and what is it with Western? Why are the placements different, and what is that all about? It's about the stars. And I always say that Vedic astrology is true to the stars, because when I look at the fixed stars, which are so powerful, such as Regulus being the heart of the lion, in Western astrology, they think that through looking at their chart, it is in Virgo. And that doesn't make any sense to me that Regulus could be in Virgo because its definitions are what define the sign Leo, as well as the star Antares. It cannot be in Sagittarius because it is the heart of the Scorpion, and everything that describes Antares describes Scorpio. So you see these movements of the stars and relative to the planets are going to be your Vedic chart, which is deep with meaning, and we must respect this ancient system of astrology. It works. Astrology works. And I have a love of all astrology and a deep respect. And you should too. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, you want to learn Vedic astrology, remember I have a stellar university, a community of astrologers, and it is growing by leaps and bounds. Check it out and become a part and learn of our community and learn Vedic astrology. It's University of Vedic Astrology.com, and it's a self-paced course. You can sign up at any time and start watching our videos and being part of our live community of people. Every week, live classes plus recorded classes. It's a wealth of information. And also, remember we have the shooting stars. If you're into spirituality and you want to be grounded and heal, join our shooting stars. It's weekly. This is also on my website, which is galacticcenter.org. And if you want to read astrology, beautiful articles every single month, we have amazing writers in my magazine, which you'll want to know about this, which is Joni Patry's Astrology Insights. Check it all out. Go to galacticcenter.org. And remember, my courses, my University of Vedic Astrology is universityofvedicastrology.com. Thank you.